We're jumping right into game footage for today's critical thought, as I want to talk about the magical word known as tactics, and more specifically, when is a game really considered tactical or not? Because it's another one of those terms like roguelike and Metroidvania, and even a Minecraft simulator or Battle Royale, where everybody can say their game is it, but there are only a smaller number of games that actually matter or really exemplify that point. And tactical based games are definitely a bread and butter for strategy fans. Again, we can look at major examples like XCOM, or even stuff like Tactics Ogre, and that's actually an interesting point. There are so many games that use the word tactics somewhere in their title. But the footage I'm showing you right now is of, well, Achtung Cthulhu Tactics, which unfortunately, despite having both Cthulhu and Tactics in its title, is not all that of an interesting game from a tactical standpoint. And it's kind of the basis for this video today, and we have one other game footage which we'll show in a few minutes. But trying to figure out whether a game is tactical or not, I feel it comes down to several major qualifiers. The first is just what exactly are my options at play? Meaning, is this a matter of, do I have to choose from 4 or 5 okay options, the best of the worst or the worst of the best? Or am I just able to rely on the same option day in and day out? And with Cthulhu Tactics here, this is a good example of the latter. There are so many options you can see at the bottom of the screen there whenever I'm choosing a character, but really, the best plays in this game boil down to maybe 2 or 3 choices, and that's across all 4 characters. Another big point about whether a game is tactical or not is, what are the enemy's options? What am I actually having to deal with? This has always been the beauty of the XCOM and even Darkest Dungeon in terms of their respective designs. Both games feature asymmetrical bounds between the player and the enemy, meaning that the AI operates under a different set of rules and conditions compared to the player. In XCOM, every enemy design has its own unique advantages compared to the player, as well as disadvantages for you to exploit. In XCOM 2, for instance, the upgraded sectoids, those giant gray aliens, not only can do psychic attacks, but they can bring back the dead or possess a character. However, if you kill that character, then anything that he brings back to life dies along with it. And again, for people who have played XCOM 2 to high-level play, I'm sure there are many more examples and even more greater sense in terms of optimization. In Darkest Dungeon, every enemy may allow or may do stress attacks or stress-based hits, but they also have their own unique weaknesses or things you can exploit. Be it the use of powering up your units such as the Leper, setting up marks with the Bounty Hunter, the Houndmaster, etc., or just being able to have characters who can heal or get around their special abilities. The point is, as the player, I need to adjust for what the enemy is doing as much as I need to figure out what my options are. This is a very big point when it comes to CCG and TCG based design, wherein the enemy or my opponent has their own deck of cards. They have their own unique set of options to deal with me, just as I have my own set to deal with them. And this is where that tactical play comes in. It comes down to, okay, I have to figure out what my options will do to him or do to them, and how will I be able to compensate or deal with what they're going to do to me. With Achtung Cthulhu Tactics here, as you've seen in the last few minutes, basically the enemies fall into 2 kinds. The rush me and get mowed down, or stay back and let me snipe them. And there's just not enough in terms of diversity of tactics to really force a design. And this is why these 2 points I just mentioned go hand in hand. The player's options versus the enemy's. Because if the enemy is unique and has special abilities to deal with me, then by virtue or by continuation of that, I need to then use different tactics and different options to deal with them. This is why in XCOM, or in XCOM 2 for instance, when you're fighting enemies such as those lurker camouflage enemies, you have to respond differently than compared to when you fight chrysalids, or the mutons, or those giant robot tank things that scares everybody. But again, the point is, my options have to be able to compensate the enemy just as the enemy has to test me. If you don't have that, then you're not really giving a tactical sense of play. And this is the big problem with Achtung Cthulhu Tactics, that once I got myself a routine that worked, I realized that routine worked every single time in every encounter. And what you see in this game is that pistols are completely broken. They have naturally high accuracy, they don't need to be reloaded, and you can just simply set someone up to just pistol snipe almost endlessly in a single turn. And the thing is, that should not happen in a game. And you have to be really careful when you're balancing your options like that. As we've talked about before, if there's one thing gamers are really good at, besides saying that games are broken if they miss 80% of the time, is that they are masters at min-max optimization. If they see that choice A works 90% of the time, they are going to use that every single time that's available because they know that's the best option. And this is why so many gamers are great at breaking games. And if you want further proof of that, you can definitely check out the speedrunning communities and how they will just pour over every inch of a game to figure out the best ways of winning it. But while we've been looking at Cthulhu Tactics here, let's switch to a game that also tries to be tactical, or should I say strategic, but I don't think the design is really set up for it. And now a quick shout out to the supporters over on patreon.com/GWBycer. The Disgaea franchise has become legendary at this point for the amount of hours needed to play through it. Each one of these games can easily last 500 to 1,000 hours, maybe even more, if you really want to explore every inch of its design and various systems. And that number has only grown with each new game in the franchise, adding in more subsystems and ways to super boost your characters to obscene levels, more than in any other video game ever made. And the franchise itself, at its basic foundation, is built on strategy RPG design, or SRPG. And it's another popular term that gets thrown around to try and bring that level of complexity and depth to systems that may not otherwise have it. But the point with Disgaea, and as a franchise as a whole, again, comes back to whether or not it can really be considered tactical. And the strangest thing about Disgaea as a franchise, and we may need to do a separate video on this at some point, is how so much of what you do or how you respond to this game changes based on your own thoughts or your goals of playing. And I know that doesn't make that much sense when I say it like that, but Disgaea is a game or a franchise that you get what you put out, or you get back what you put out with it. If you only want to play this as a 10 to 30 hour long SRPG where each battle is a, bare knuckle brawl to the end, you can do it like that. Do you want to turn this into a 100-hour plus min-max mastery where nothing can stand your way? You can do that as well. And how much you approach or you make use of these systems is entirely up to you. And there's a lot here. We could probably spend 15-20 minutes talking about all the various systems of Disgaea 5. But getting back to our main point though, is this tactical? Is there depth here? And I hate to say it, but I think this has always been part of the failing of the Disgaea franchise, in that no matter how much you play this game, eventually all tactics fall away in favor of numbers. I'm going to fast forward the footage just a little bit here so you can actually see some combat as I'm talking. But when it comes to Disgaea, a key point about this game's design is that it's all about stats. The stats of a character are basically their key factor compared to a level. As a character levels up, that character will gain boosts in the relevant stats based on that class. So a warrior gains more attack, healer gains more resistance, and you get the picture. But the reason why I bring this up is that when you start powering characters up, basically the stats override everything. And if you do your job right playing Disgaea 5, you will hit a point where basically tactics disappear. And I always say this about games that try to push things too much and kind of break their system. With Disgaea 5, if my character does 5 million points of damage per hit, and enemies only have like 50,000 health points, tell me, what exactly do I need tactics for at that point? And before anyone says it, I actually just quote you a lowball number. There's an achievement in Disgaea 5 to do 10 billion points of damage to an enemy. And that is entirely possible in this kind of game. If you prepare things right and you do your optimizations, you could probably do that. It may take you a while, but it is certainly available. But again, the point is that when it comes to the Disgaea franchise, it always gets to that point where the basic game systems or the basic foundation of this gameplay loop just don't really matter anymore. And this is just a stark contrast to games like XCOM or Darkest Dungeon, or even other SRPGs like Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre, where even if you level your characters up, you still need to pay attention to the combat. Anyone who's played XCOM knows that you will never hit a point where you can just throw characters straight at the enemies and they'll just win through numbers alone. You always have that tactical layer that is keeping things in check. And when it works, it gives these games depth. And to begin to wrap things up, again, I don't think I would call Disgaea a tactical game, but I'm curious what you think watching this right now. But to summarize things up, when a game is considered tactical, it must present a varying number of valid choices or viable choices to the player, and also have the enemy be an adequate test or challenge to them. If my options are too limited or one or two are just too good, then I'm just going to repeat the same thing. And again, if the enemy is too simple or doesn't do enough to test me, then that's just going to further exemplify that. Because I'm not going to need to do anything special if I can just literally or metaphorically mow down everyone thanks to an overpowered strategy or with just pure numbers on my side. For those of you watching this right now, besides some of the big name examples that we've mentioned, can you think of other games that have had a really good tactical layer to them? And as another point, can you think of tactical based games that failed to really provide that backdrop to make the player think and be challenged? Let me know in the comments below, but thank you so much for watching today's Critical Thought. If you suggest another topic, please don't hesitate to leave a comment, and I will see you guys next time for another discussion. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel link down below where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.